Hey guys, let's talk about tonight's episode of The Walking Dead, and we finally get to find out where Beth has been for all this time. And just like we left Terminus, and the time before that, when we left the governor and his crazy bandits, we've now arrived at this hospital where this woman named Dawn is running things. And again, it's another kind of crazy bunch of people that are running this hospital. And once again we're finding out what people are willing to sacrifice, what people are willing to consider their law in order to make it. And when we first see Beth, she's in a room and there's a clock ticking, and she gets up and she looks out the window, and it's the city of Atlanta, and it's devastated, and it's got buildings that were on fire and holes in others, and it just looks like a bomb went off in Atlanta. And it's the first real time that we're seeing this image, other than one that we saw in Michonne's dream sequence in season 4, I believe. But what's interesting here is she's locked in a room, so that is not a good sign. And then when the door opens, it's a doctor and a police officer. And one of the first things that the cop says to her, she's like, "Yeah, we found you, so you owe us." And she says it in a not so friendly term. And we find out very quickly that Beth is pretty much having to pay back what she owes to these people for saving her life. And she's this doctor's assistant. And, Beth has never been my favorite character. She kind of grew on me last season when we had a few scenes with her and Daryl. But as in terms of her being a really strong actress, or a storyline that I really cared about, it was just not really there for me. So for her to kind of deliver an entire episode, it was something that I was like a little nervous about. But I will say that toward the end of this episode, she was phenomenal. We get the sense that in the beginning, she's still trying to figure out her bearings and what this hospital's all about. And a woman comes in and they have to amputate her arm because she's been bitten, and they use this what basically looks like kind of dental floss to like saw off her arm, and Beth has to hold her down. So we've seen Beth kill walkers, but we've never really had to seen her deal with the human element of it all. And in this episode, this is really her dealing with the humans and how she has to react and act and react to these people. So, she's alongside Dr. Stevens for most of this episode, and he's pretty much, taking her under her wing and helping her and trying to tell Dawn that, to calm down, and, you don't really have to treat her this way. And Dawn hits her, like she's very abusive to her. It's a really scary environment, and the police officers who are supposed to be protecting them are also really creepy. There's one named Gorman, and he's a real piece of work. And, he takes this lollipop that another person that's staying there, his name is Noah, gives to her as like a little treat. And he takes it and then licks it and then forces it in her mouth, which is, what kind of symbolism is that showing to you? It's like, it was just so disturbing. Once again, the women on the show being manhandled and just being treated in less than flattering terms by these strangers. It's just, anyways. So it's nice to see that midway through this episode, after having a stern talking to from Dawn, Beth basically pulls up her bootstraps and is like, "I'm getting the heck out of here." And she doesn't want to stay there. She's even told them, like, "I didn't ask to be here." And Dawn's basically trying to say to her, "This is the world that we live in now. And you could go out there, but you're probably going to die. So it's best to stay here, pay off what you owe. And if you want to leave, you can go ahead and do that." Really? Because when she tries to leave, you pull her back inside. But Beth becomes friends with this kid named Noah, and he has a plan to escape. And she decides she's going to do that with him. And earlier on in the episode, we see that Dr. Stevens shows Beth where they take the dead people, and they basically shove them into this elevator shaft, and that's where the rotting, disgusting bodies have been staying. You would think that there would be a serious odor coming out of there, but anyways, so there's another moment where they bring in this gentleman, And there's like Dr. Stevens has this very really strong reaction to him, and Dawn is telling Dr. Stevens, you have to save him, try to do everything to save him. And he's like, we don't need to waste our resources on him, blah, blah, blah. So there's a moment when Dr. Stevens and Beth are on the roof, and he's explaining sort of how they got there, and that, he's telling her why he can't leave because there's a bunch of walkers outside, and then how they got there, and how they've become to be the group that they are. And in that moment, Dr. Stevens tells Beth to go check on one of the patients. I think his name is Trevitt or something like that. And then she can call it a day. And he tells her some meds to give him. And when she does, he seizes and dies. So they have to kill him. And later on, we find out that this man was also a doctor. And Dr. Stevens knew this. And Beth calls him out on it by saying, you had me kill him so that you would still be the only doctor here, because you knew that if there would be another doctor, Dawn wouldn't care about you and you would basically be dead. Like, she wouldn't care. And if something happened to you, that's it. So again, it's kill or be killed. So Dr. Stevens does some self-preservation and has Beth kill him, unbeknownst to her, until she finds his piece of ID when she's snooping in Dawn's office. And why is she snooping in Dawn's office? Because her plan to get the key so that they can get out of the hospital later on with Noah. So one of the things that didn't really make sense to me, but I guess she just killed herself, was that Joanne, was found, Beth found her in the office and she had a pair of scissors. So I guess she killed herself after they amputated her arm. And so, of course, she turns into a walker. But before that, creepy police officer Gorman tries to assault Beth. Just gross. He tries to fondle her and tries to put his hand up her top. And then Beth smartly smashes his head open with a jar that had some lollipops in it. And then the walker dismantles him, thankfully. And so, of course, Beth takes this as her opportunity to flee the hospital, and her and Noah shimmy down the elevator shaft, and they fall into the body of disgusting corpses, and then they make their way out but before they have to shoot their way through it with because a bunch of zombies are trying to get them, and they finally make it outside. As they're trying to get away, the police officers come out and they take Beth back inside. Meanwhile, Noah does get away. So, Beth really does stand up for herself, and it was really great to see her shooting her way out of there. Obviously, she's had some really great training from all of her time out with Rick and her crew. So she's shooting zombies in the head. People are, she's getting away. Like, it looks like she's about to get mobbed, but she makes her way through the crowd. Noah gets out through the gate, but she unfortunately gets caught, and she has a smile on her face by the end of it. So she's happy to see Noah get away, and she gets pulled back inside. And then she finally once again stands up to Dawn. She's like, Dawn, no one's coming for us, okay? We're going to die here. And all the things that you're doing, trying to not protect the people that are in this hospital from these creepy cops, you're just not helping. You're making matters worse. And then Dawn goes to town on Beth and beats her up again. And of course, this is when Beth calls out Dr. Stevens. And so now Beth feels, what else is she going to do? So it looks like she's got a little weapon in her hand. She's walking down the hall. It looks like she's about to kill Dr. Stevens to try to get away again. And then we see a gurney coming through the door. And who's on top of that gurney? Carol. So obviously at the end of last week's episode, when Daryl is calling to somebody in the bushes, I don't know who he's talking about, because is it Carol? Is it somebody else? Does Daryl find her? I don't know. But by the end of this episode, I think we see a stronger, more formidable Beth. Again, like, we've seen her go badass on the zombies, but we've never had to see her go and really stand up to humans. So this was a pretty solid episode for her. It was a bit slow in the beginning, but I really liked the way that it ended. And just to see how each sort of society has created their own rule of law, I guess, is very interesting again in this post apocalyptic time. And yeah, you know, Dawn seems very adamant that when the people come to save them, that she's going to help bring this city back to where it used to be. And like the wheels in her head are definitely going crazy. Now, the actress that plays her, the last thing I saw her in was in this really great comedy called Hello Ladies, and she is a far cry from that show because she is definitely a little bit off of her rocker. And again, that just goes to show you what this zombie apocalypse has brought to them. Like, they've had to create who they are now. And they don't even call these, I don't think that they were calling them zombies. They were calling them like routers or something. Anyways, it was interesting to hear what they were calling them. But at the end of the day, they really didn't, they're not getting much further ahead because they're bringing in people, but they're also not saving a lot of people either. So let me know what you guys thought of this episode. I thought it was good to see where Beth has been. It's good to know that she hasn't been off with a bunch of, well, she was with one creepy dude, but she wasn't off with a group of, you know, those other travelers and those other, what we call them, the ones that were out there killing and raping people. I'm glad she didn't end up with those people. But where she is isn't much better, to be honest. And I like that she said that. She said, this isn't living. And yeah, you don't really want to be spending your nights out in the trees and in the bushes, but this isn't much better, guys. All right, let me know what you guys thought. Leave a comment, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week.